Hospitality versus Service, a Restaurant Guru article written by Peter Lyons and read by Jordan Reeder. For more free restaurant resources, check out therestaurantguru.co.uk. I've been in the service industry now for 20 years, starting at the early age of 16. 18 of those years have been spent in management, and after landing in the restaurant game, which I adore, one element surprises me over and over again. I've come across so many managers and trainers over the years, but surprising, very few understand the concept or difference between service and hospitality. I currently reside in the Middle East, and like the UK, there are few who seem to grasp this concept. For clarity's sake, let me define the two in basic terms. Service is what you do. It's a sequence of acts, tasks, and procedures which, if done with consistency, should satisfy most customers when they visit your restaurant. Most good establishments will have some sort of written sequence of service in place. Hospitality, however, is your secret weapon. This is how restaurants rise above the humdrum and endless stream of food ventures that just don't seem to understand what this business is all about. Hospitality is, in its barest form, the ability to make an emotional connection with your guest. Notice I use the word guest and not customer. As you can imagine, I visit restaurants regularly, and I'm often left dumbstruck with their sheer lack of hospitality in venues across the world. Here in the Middle East, no expense is spared in fitting out a location. Often, you'll find serious effort has been put into the design, with some stunning results. That, however, is a mere piece of the puzzle, and it does not guarantee success. On the flip side, I've seen many restaurants that don't have the best venue, but they're consistently busy. It goes without saying that your food offering has to be good, but if I cast my mind back to some of the best restaurant experiences I've ever had, I honestly struggle to remember the details of the dishes consumed. Why? In my humble opinion, this magic element that can elevate your establishment to new levels of return guests is hospitality. I have heard people in our industry say attitude can't be trained, a philosophy which I really disagree with. Of course it can. It simply takes longer and requires a much more individual approach, which many restaurant managers may not be able to offer. So then, how do venues ensure their people offer great hospitality? First, recruit well. Spend time and effort selecting your staff. As the great restaurant legend Jim Sullivan says, hire slow, fire fast. When operating a venue in Manchester, England, the owner of the restaurant had me as a consultant, but insisted in interviewing the entire team before we opened. On top of this, he spent a minimum of 30 minutes, often longer, casually interviewing each candidate, over 100, to whittle things down to a 30-person team. While this was time-consuming, we took 2 weeks total in pure recruitment. The results were amazing. We knew each member of the team, from steward to chef to waiter, had a great personality and natural hospitality skills. It should also be noted that most of the team had little restaurant experience, and this was mostly deliberate on our part, as we wanted fresh minds that had not potentially been filled with ideas contrary to our restaurant's wanted culture. The great team we had assembled, at that stage, only had potential. The next stage, and what I consider to be the most important, is what made the venue so popular with guests. Training. Quite simply, this is where you will conquer other restaurants if executed correctly. Can you train hospitality? Hell yes! Let's be clear first. Training has to be daily. It has to be a passion for the whole management team, and they need to sell their philosophies to the team and resell those concepts on a daily basis. I worked for a large restaurant company once who announced to all brands a shift in focus to real hospitality. I was excited, but sadly, their concept of hospitality was merely a adjusted sequence of service elements designed to increase table turnover. There was no emphasis on emotional connection, only logistics. I've always loved to train. It's in my blood. So adding my own thoughts and philosophies to initiatives comes easy, and I do, however, see that this is not the case with many restaurants. Training comes in all shapes and formats. It can be 2-minute quick-fire sessions, 10-minute focus sessions when you're quiet, part of your pre-shift briefing, which I encourage every restaurant manager to always hold, of a classroom-style session with substantial structure and prep. Regardless of the method, the first thing is first. It has to happen, and it has to be, in some way, planned and scheduled. If it's not, you run the risk of other tasks taking precedent. Use this as an analogy. Would you allow a novice firefighter to tackle a burning building without significant training beforehand? I guess not, yet so many restaurant operators let their team interact with guests with very little training. Treat your guests as the fire, and don't let your team loose on them until they have been trained thoroughly. I have many methods I use to drill hospitality into my teams. There are literally thousands you can try, but to develop your team, here are a few to get you started. Read books on hospitality and restaurant management. Amazon is fantastic for resources, and you can often pick up used copies for pennies. Even if you only pick up one tip per book, it's worth it. Role plays. Set up situations of conversational service, video them, and then ask the team how they could improve the emotional connection if they had to do it again. Incentivize the team to achieve a connection with the guests. I once had a waitress whose return guests only ever wanted to sit in her section. They would wait up to an hour to be served by her and would bring her gifts when returning from vacation. The waitress had previously been a hairdresser and had brought that conversational style of service to her performance in the restaurant. Try and incentivize the team to achieve social media mentions, great reviews on sites like TripAdvisor or Yelp, mentioning their name, etc. It all helps to push the team and increase your social marketing. Read review sites. Pick up on what guests like related to hospitality and turn it into a mini training session on your next pre-shift. Hold pre-shifts daily. These essential get-togethers are so impactful if done correctly and can improve your business each day. Check out www.sullivision.com for ideas on how to hold a great pre-shift. Lead by example. As a manager or owner, touch each of your tables, interact with your guests, and take the time to make a connection. If your team see you doing it, they will follow suit. Be hospitable with your team. Treat your team like trash, and that will cascade in some way to your guests. Our industry is notorious for its monster managers, but ultimately, it will be the guest that suffers. So, apart from being, simply, the human thing to do, being hospitable to your team is good business sense. While service is no doubt important, I tend to look at it as the foundation of hospitality, and that hospitality is the magic aspect that brings guests back time and time again. If you take the time and effort to invest in your people and develop their ability to connect with guests, your business has the potential to flourish. Thanks for taking the time to read my article. I'm in the process of writing my first book on restaurant training methodology, called A Method in the Madness, in addition to setting up my website, which will hold many restaurateur resources, downloadable content to assist restaurant managers and owners. If you're in the Middle East, I also do keynote speeches and consultancy work for restaurants, leisure venues, and food retail. Check out my profile for updates and more articles soon. Be sure to share this article with like-minded hospitality folks.